All right, so this is the 10-minute presentation part. You've been called back by the company that you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. Congratulations. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A. You may not use slides or video, and you probably don't want to have more than 2 or 3 members of your team do this. And although there's no Q&A, we'll give you feedback after the presentation.
Ready, set my timer.
Perfect, thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready, begin.
Okay. Tarte Cosmetics competes in an oversaturated beauty and cosmetics industry that's willing to cut costs and increase profitability by any means necessary. The greatest ethical issue that arises for these brands are concerns of human rights violations in their sourcing. This is because a lot of the natural ingredients that are sourced are in host countries where there are exploitative labor practices. For example, in Madagascar, it's the largest extractor and exporter of mica, which Tarte utilizes in their eyeshadow palettes. However, beyond the shimmer, the dark reality is that children as young as 4 years old alongside their families are working to extract these materials for our consumption. Shea butter. Traditionally, a women-led extractive industry also faces concerns of wage inequality. This is because the profits from this industry rarely trickle down to these West African women.
This lack of morality doesn't just stop in the sourcing, it actually affects the stakeholders. Through our research, we have found that majority of firms consider their consumers to be their most important stakeholders as they are the backbone of their firm. So consumers, when they are engaging with these firms, are under the impression that the companies are not only being honest about what the ingredients are, what the products do, but what the supply chain processes are going on the back end of things. Additionally, as entrepreneurship is on the rise, consumers have an infinite number of options to choose from. And when choosing these options, majority of the time they go for the ones that they believe to be ethical or promoting goodwill. We want to frame Tarte as that company, so there is no second guessing of that. It's just the automatic go-to. However, we have found that due to the failure of disclosing where Tarte's ingredients are sourced from, they are currently undermining the consumer autonomy in that regard.
So in keeping with that theme, Tarte's marketing strategy, which is mainly rooted around glamour and luxury, promotes overconsumption. By leveraging the reach of its influencers, Tarte taps into consumer insecurities, often creating this scarcity mindset, which consumers feel as though they never have enough or that they are never enough and need to buy more. This can pose some serious consequences such as the environmental degradation and the natural depletion of resources that are sourced in areas like Madagascar. The sad reality is that we are not limited to its resources. We're subject to the same limitation of the environment from which we consume from. That is why sustainable sourcing is at the top of our priority, because it obviously trickles down to protecting the environment and just being ethically responsible all in throughout. And it's just a way of safeguarding human dignity.
To safeguard the dignity of humans within our supply chain, we will only utilize certified ethically sourced ingredients. While originally we want to negotiate with our current vendors, ensuring safe working conditions, adequate pay, so we don't need to incur the cost of cost production system changes, we were successful in finding ethically sourced vendors for all of our ingredients as an alternative. At Aura Beauty Consulting, we believe that the financial cost incurred of ensuring that our ingredients are ethically sourced does not outweigh the benefits of knowing that the products consumers are buying provide financial and social mobility for those within its supply chain.
So once we ensure that human dignity is preserved, we can then safeguard the dignity of our consumers. We plan to do this by providing sustainability transparency reports in collaboration with Bluebird. Bluebird is an innovative software that provides sustainability and climate impact reports for a firm on its entire product and packaging line. By leveraging this service, we can open the door to more honest and communication with our consumers, distributors, and suppliers. We believe that this will reap great benefits as implementing more environmentally friendly consumption is on the rise among consumers and has provided about a 5 to 20% return in investment gain. This would live on the product page underneath where you add the actual product to your cart, but before the reviews, so that when consumers are making the decision if they want to purchase or not, they can see it's color coded, so it will stick out to them, and then they have the option to go to the Bluebird website where they can view in depth the sustainability report. This report is measured on two different things, the carbon footprint and the waste footprint. The carbon footprint is measured in accordance with greenhouse gas protocols, which is the gold standard for the industry. This looks at the entire supply chain processes, communicating with all of the suppliers and the manufacturers to ensure the most accurate score. In terms of the waste footprint, they look at both the recyclability and the degradability, the products, the packages, and the downstream packaging that goes into creating the product itself in the supply chain processes. I can confidently say that investing in a relationship with Bluebird will also invest in a relationship with Tarte's consumers and allow Tarte to focus on what they're already doing best and keeping them as a brand that is so loved.
So furthering Tarte's cosmetic sustainability initiatives, we propose a partnership with TerraCycle. TerraCycle essentially is a service in which they go ahead and strip boxes to our consumers, which they can then fill with their used products to go ahead and recycle. So it's a very easy process for them. We can go ahead through that program, we can go ahead and oversee and look at how much consumption is going through with our customers, and possibly some down the line, go ahead and provide free gifts for doing something that's very ethical and sustainable.
Considering the previous solutions, our final wrap up would be to shift our marketing strategy to really build upon our newfound sustainability and ethical initiatives. This is because currently Tarte does a wonderful job at utilizing various social media influencers and brand ambassadors at promoting the power in natural beauty. However, we believe that this could be expanded upon. We believe that Tarte has the power to enact change and affect consumers' consumption habits, and we can really leverage these social media influencers to help us create change and have our own consumers take a look at their own consumption habits. By doing this, we will be preserving not only the environment, but also safeguarding the integrity of workers in our supply chain. And from there, we can create greater transparency with our operations with our consumers. So with that being said, we believe that preserving the dignity of humans within our supply chain, having greater transparency with our consumers in terms of operations, and finally, upholding and working with environmental integrity to ensure that we are using our resources in the best way possible will lead to upholding the intrinsic value and worth of all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, feedback. Very good eye contact. I like the fact that you were talking with us, not at us. And I tell groups like yours that there are three parts to any presentation. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So you set the groundwork, do the presentation, and then remind them of what it was you set out to do. So, good job. Would not want to be in your position. Thank you.
So Jeff actually told all the teams that are going to inside, all the teams are going to be in the second page. So we'd like to bring all the teams in so we can see each other present. And give feedback at the very end. Because last year the teams were saying they wanted to see more.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna have the other teams come in.
Okay.
And then then you can give feedback at the very end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody.
So we can just sit there and
Well, you
watch.
guys lucked out then.
I know.
Yeah.
Anytime.
About what you're
Shall we start?
Go ahead and start.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our presentation again. Thank you to invite us again for the follow-up meeting as the board directors of Meta. Our group name is Thrive Trio, EMN Consulting Group. My name is Nuran Salman.
My name is Mura Asfar.
And today we are going to mainly talk about the ethical part and we will focus on it. So let's get started. So first of all, Meta is well known as a big company and it's a very successful company who has a huge name in the market. But as much as it has a big impact at the market, it also has a big impact of damaging the safety of the users. So what are the ethical issues that we selected? It is misinformation and harmful content, violating the privacy of the user, and also the data breach, which is related also to the lack of security. And with that, we want to add for this that Meta is putting profit over the safety of the users. Besides that, we were asking ourselves like, why you are doing that? And what's the reason behind that? You're violating the law and you're violating the privacy. And besides that, you are not respecting and putting the trust between you and between the customers, the users. So you are ignoring the responsibility instead of protecting. This is unethical, obviously. And also that beside the trust, you are also trying to gain the money and the revenue instead of gaining the respect and be user-friendly to the users. And now Mona will continue.
Thank you, Nuna. By truly being responsible, ethically accountable, and transparent company, you can, as a company, better benefit and provide benefit to its stakeholders. Also, it may help you create and maintain your values, mission and vision, and your virtues. These characteristics is really rare and unique in today's business model. You may ask yourself, for example, how do I know as a consultant how our solutions will provide and benefit you as a company the ethical problems? I'm gonna start with the first one, which is the privacy solution. We introduced earlier in the other presentation if you limit the data collection and enhance the consent for the user and provide them with more control over which app can take their data, their personal information, and that's if you did that, it will provide and rebuild the user trust. Also, by limiting insider data access will help you to reduce the insider data leaks. Moving on to the misinformation solutions, we introduced you also to the AI. We want you to implement, and if you implemented that proposal, you can detect which fake trends and misinformation is out there. Let's say there's a rumor, you can detect it fast. And also for the misinformation trends, we want you to raise awareness. If you raise awareness for these issues, you should provide to them for the users to if you provide those options for the user, they can be aware on how to spot fake news and misinformation trends. Moving on to the security solution. For the security solution, also I mentioned earlier about the insider data leaks. If you limit access for, like, example, employees, their internal, for them to access their data, they will prevent also insider data leaks and their, for example, information as being exposed.
Yes, I want you to know that we are not criticizing we are giving constructive criticism, which means that we want you to understand that everyone has their weakness point and their strength point. You have the positive side and the negative side. So we are trying to help you with that so you can focus on that, not just ignore it. We have to rebuild the trust with the users. Am I right? So instead of leaving all of this on the side, we need to focus and help with that. Not only letting it go without any attention. We have to pay attention for that. And this issue will grow up if we didn't focus on it as are you going to leave another application or companies to dominate the market instead of you? For example, X and Snapchat, they are doing a good job with being user-friendly and with trusting, to have a trust between them and between their users. You have an option to share your information or you just decline this option if you don't agree with that. So why don't we just focus on keeping your position in the market and above? So yes, we wanted to highlight this so we can improve it, not just leaving it.
As we all know, your company faces ethical and strategic issue, which is pressuring for your company to fix the insider data leaks, the misinformation, privacy violation, and the security risks. We want you to be aware that if you don't fix those problems right now, it will lead to failure, and the other user competitive, they will lead the market instead of you. And also I'd like to add,
we want also to add that with you giving the opportunity for the other companies to dominate the position, you're losing your revenue and you're using the trust and you're using also the love from the public, which you need for a good reputation, not for damaging it. And now we will conclude with Muna at the end.
by implementing these solutions, your company will rebuild trust again, get more and wider audience. Also, it will lead to expansion, increasing revenue for your company, and it will help you to be bigger than the other competitor. Thank you so much for listening. As a board of directors, again, thank you for inviting us for the follow-up meeting. As a consulting group, we hope you take our recommendation and solution under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Water Asset Management executives, for having us today, and good morning. 40 million residents and 12,000 farmers rely on the Colorado River. Did you know that 2/3 of the agricultural vegetables that we consume, not just in the state of California, not just in the state of Arizona, not just in the state of Colorado, but 2/3 of the vegetables consumed in the entire country come from land that's irrigated on the Colorado River? But we have a problem that we need to face. Currently, we are in the biggest drought that we've seen in the past 1,200 years. That's a water drought big enough to cover this entire state of California in 3 inches of water. We're in a pretty dry spell right now. So where does water asset management come in? Well, your company strives to be the system to appropriately manage and allocate water along the Colorado River. So that means that you buy land adjacent to the Colorado River, and you profit in the short term from leasing that land back to the farmers, and you profit in the long term by selling that land once water scarcity decreases, and you benefit from the profits of that. We are here today to break down the ethical issues surrounding the sale of water rights on the Colorado River, as well as engagement with other stakeholder groups such as farmers. And on that note, I'm going to pass it off to Joseph to do a stakeholder analysis.
Thank you, Adam. Water asset management. You strive to be the system to help manage the Colorado River's water resources. Thus, your goal for when engaging with stakeholders should be to maximize value creation for all of them while minimizing trade-offs. Key stakeholders that for your firm include farmers, your company, and shareholders. Right now, there is value being provided to your company and shareholders because you are generating strong short-term returns. Yet, this value being provided to your company and shareholders is actually coming at the cost of farmers, because farmers right now do not have enough they don't have enough water and their livelihoods are at stake. Yet, they value being able to keep their land, their livelihood that their ancestors have done for generations, farming the land, growing the crops, and providing food for this entire country. Now I'll move on to the consequences related to the trade-offs. So for farmers, some of the consequences will be that they lie awake at night questioning whether they'll be able to keep their farming occupation like for a lifetime and continue the work that their ancestors have done. This is a stark contrast from the ideal outcome for them, which would be that they will have enough water to continue their farming practices. And yet, this affects your company too, Water Asset Management. This is affecting your ability to generate long-term returns because dried up land has less monetary value, and due to all these events, the government has been passing more regulations to crack down on water usage. Now I'll pass it off to Rohan to talk about fairness.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for discussing the consequences of the trade-offs. At the moment, farmers do not have enough water. That is not fair. They are providing this country with 2/3 of its produce. Water is not just a resource, water is not just a commodity, it is a life-sustaining resource. At the moment, we need to ensure that we're hitting the target of making sure that every person in this country that needs water has the water they deserve and require. At the moment, that is not happening and we are missing that target. Our issue presents us with two sustainable development goals, SDG 12 and SDG 6. SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. WAM at the moment is not doing enough to provide and efficiently allocate water to its users. In addition to that, there is SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. There are 12,000 farmers and 40 million residents that rely on the Colorado River every single day. It is a problem right now that they may be suffering in the future from. I'm now going to pass it to Adam to discuss a solution to that.
Thanks for doing the ethical analysis of that, Rohan. So we have a solution. Right now, farmers don't have enough water. Where does WAM come in? With the solution. We're going to expand our responsibilities. What does that mean? Expand our responsibilities to engage in meaningful dialogue, to build partnerships with other stakeholders, with other users, and the Colorado River itself. At the end of the day, we don't want to be speculators. We want to be partners, moving forward for an ethical and sustainable future. So what does that look like? Well, we've broken that down into 3 key steps that we can follow. First, we're going to revisit our mission statement. The last 4 words of our mission statement is to ensure water supply reliability. Right now, that's not being met. Currently, farmers don't know if they'll have water for the next month, the next week, or even the next day. So once we've reconsidered that and we've repositioned ourselves to ensure water supply reliability for these farmers, we can next move on to the step 2, looking at other stakeholders of the Colorado River. Right now, 80% of the Colorado River is used by agriculture. That leaves 20% that Water Asset Management has yet to be in communication with. And we all know an important business considers all stakeholders. It doesn't engage with just one. But I'll touch on that a little bit more in a moment. Finally, deliver value. We want to deliver value not just for our investors so we can continue to make a profit, but deliver value for the Colorado River, for its users, for a more beneficial and sustainable future. So now let's talk about those stakeholders. How are we going to expand our conversation to build partnerships? Well, it'll look like this. We've identified a key stakeholder group. That key stakeholder group uses 4% of the Colorado River. That 4% comes from power plants. The reason we've identified power plants is because they're the most inefficient users of the Colorado River. How so? Well, they engage in something called wet cooling. Wet cooling takes in large amounts of water and it dumps it into the power plant to cool off their high heat systems. But this means that a lot of water is also lost through steam. What Water Asset Management aims to do is to engage in a partnership with them by investing in a hybrid cooling technology system. Hybrid technology reduces water usage by 75%, as well as increases efficiency for these power plants by 18%. So that's how they're winning. How does Water Asset Management win? Well, we would increase our ROI by 9% because we would take the water rights that these power plants don't need anymore and we'll be able to supply it to the farmers. So this means that farmers have an increased amount of water so they can continue to profit, as my partner Rohan mentioned how this is an ethically contentious issue for them, as well as they can continue to feed the nation, to fuel us to betterness. So now I'll return it to Rohan to talk about the SDGs.
Thank you so much, Adam, for discussing how by expanding our responsibility and investing in hybrid cooling, we can help evolve a sustainable future. At the moment, if we implement our solution, we will be directly hitting the targets of SDG 6 and SDG 12, as I mentioned earlier. Hybrid cooling has up to 75% reduction in water consumption. That is a direct effect on SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. That excess water can now go directly back to those consumers. That directly hits the 12,000 farmers and those 40 million people that require it every single day. That's a direct hit on SDG 6. That is what fairness is. Fairness is all about making sure that those that require those resources have access to it. And at the moment, without a solution, that is a great implementation. If fairness is our compass, then equitable access and sustainable consumption is a strategy that can guide WAM to a better and more sustainable future. I'll now pass it on to Joseph to discuss the consequences.
Thank you, Rohan. So remember the ideal consequence for farmers, that their goal is, their ideal outcome would be that they have enough water to continue their livelihoods, growing the crops that their ancestors did, to continue providing food for this nation. Now, with the solution, there's going to be more water distributed to the farmers, ensuring that they have enough water for their livelihoods and occupations. Furthermore, we'll be ensuring that the water is the farmers are the first stakeholder group to receive the water, as they are the biggest user of the Colorado River, implying that now they'll have enough water to continue the work they've done for many, many years. And in terms of your company, Water Asset Management, the ideal consequence would be having strong short and long-term returns. And with this solution, it will strengthen your long-term returns, because with increased water, the land values will be consistent, and that the government will have less need to crack down on water usage. Now I'll discuss some of creating value for some of these stakeholders. So for farmers, this solution helps create value for them because farmers originally value being able to keep their land, keep their occupation, and continue the work that their predecessors did. With increased water, they'll be able to do that, and thus it will deliver value for them. And for your company, Water Asset Management, it will deliver more value because it will allow you to have generate more returns on your land investments, allowing you to have stronger long-term returns. I'll pass it back to Adam to conclude.
Water Asset Management, you are standing at the forefront of an opportunity. As a hegemon in the industry, you have the potential to pave a way for a more sustainable and ethical future. All eyes are on us. Let's show them that we can be appropriate and responsible managers of the Colorado River to ensure that this precious resource is allocated aptly for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Good morning, PepsiCo Board of Directors. We are so grateful that you invited us back to talk about the ethics component of our solution towards ending microplastics and this epidemic that's about to happen. We are a Move Consulting Group. I'm Joseph Kim.
I'm Tristan Bird.
And we will first address this issue by talking about your mission statement. PepsiCo's mission statement can be summarized into two main components. First of all, creating more smiles through every bite and every sip. And second, to creating a better world for children and their grandchildren. While we do respect and we find this as a noble cause, we don't believe that PepsiCo is really upholding this mission statement through its primary contribution to microplastics. Microplastics are extremely small and grains of plastic that range between 5 millimeters and 1 nanometer. This means that microplastics could be in your water bottle right now. And how PepsiCo has been contributing to this microplastic problem is through its production of PET plastic. PET is a recyclable plastic and thus has been seen as beneficial. However, just because it is recyclable does not necessarily mean that it is healthy. PET contributes significant amount of microplastics both into the environment and into human health. Microplastics are particularly damaging to the environment because through plastic waste that PepsiCo has so significantly contributed, about 220 million pounds of plastic in 2022 and is further projected to increase. To put this in perspective, this is 60% greater than the weight of every building on the LMU campus. Now, the reason why microplastics are so detrimental to the environment is because aquatic life, mistaking microplastics as food, eventually enters their system and enters the ecosystem as well. This can result in the disruption of the food chain and additionally kill some aquatic animals, causing great harm to the environment. This not only causes great harm to the environment, but also causes major health harm to humans. These microplastics, when consumed, can cause a variety of different issues. It can produce an increased risk of heart attacks, almost 2 times the greater mortality than someone who does not consume microplastics. Increased risk of respiratory inflammation, increased reproductive risk, alteration of the gut microbiome, disruption of the endocrine system, and perhaps even more terrifying is that these microplastics could enter inside your brain tissue and cause neurodegenerative diseases. Now, the ethical harms and the ethical fallbacks that PepsiCo has is that even though they're in the position to really take action, they're not simply doing much about it. In other words, through PepsiCo's active production of PET and use into their plastic waste and bulk in their products, it is further contributing to its environmental harm. As humans, we are called to be stewards of this environment. And because we are in the capability to do so, we ought to be preserving of the wildlife around us. That is not the case for the damages that PepsiCo has done. And additionally, because PepsiCo is responsible for the safe consumption of these drinks and foods, therefore they also suffer an ethical fallback because they're failing to address this microplastic issue and the health impacts that it causes. Fortunately, because PepsiCo is the second biggest food and beverage company in the world, they are in a great position to really cause this change. They are most financially capable and their consumer market is huge. So if PepsiCo really wanted to start this change, they can. However, we've been failing to see this in the past years. This court case called LA County versus Coca-Cola and Pepsi shows that PepsiCo has been very complacent in trying to solve the environmental issues. LA County sued Pepsi for deceptive advertising into convincing consumers to thinking that buying more Pepsi bottles because it's recyclable contributes to the environment in some way, as opposed to merely reducing single-use plastics or switching to an alternative. All this is to say is that PepsiCo, even though they're in a position, they're simply not doing much to do it. So as the Spider-Man quote once said, with great power comes great responsibility. PepsiCo has great power, but is clearly not acting responsibility. So what exactly is the solution then? How are we aiming to really tackle this issue? Well, the alternative that we present to you today is polylactic acid, or PLA. And the benefit of PLA is that PLA is a plastic that's derived from corn, hence biodegradable and does not contribute to any microplastics. Additionally, it has a positive impact on the environment, or at least doesn't leave as much of a harmful impact as PET does. Compared to PET, PLA requires 63% less energy to produce than PET. Additionally, it yields 68% less greenhouse gases than PET. So by PepsiCo switching from PET to PLA, essentially PepsiCo is not only investing in future health and really aligning with their mission statement of promoting the health of the future generations, but also really minimizing the environmental impact that it caused and really leaving the world a better place than it found it. So this aligns to the ethical framework because PepsiCo is now taking a more proactive approach as opposed to a reactive one in order to solve this microplastic epidemic. Now, that's without saying that there is a sustainability premium that's associated with switching from PET to PLA. And as you are maybe concerned, how are we supposed to justify this to consumers? Well, that's a question that my partner Tristan will address.
Yeah, so thank you, Joseph. Really building off of what my colleague said, I really want to emphasize the need for PepsiCo to have ethical transparency in pricing. With this investment and switch into a bioplastic like PLA is an associated price increase of around 15 to 20 cents per bottle. Now, how can we justify this price increase since we do plan on passing this price on to consumers? Now, I want to approach this question from two different perspectives. The first is when looking back at the past 5 years, the price increase for beverage goods has already increased 10 to 11%. However, this increase has been associated with minimal environmental benefits and minimal, if any, human health benefits. If we're on a similar trajectory these next these next 5 to 10 years to face another 10% increase in bottled beverages prices, then we might as well have this increase associated with the health benefits of a bioplastic like PLA and reducing microplastic pollution, and the enhanced environmental benefits like preventing microplastics into ecosystems and aquatic life. The second perspective I want to address is ethical transparency. So as long as PepsiCo is being really direct with consumers, both in their marketing campaigns and their marketing in general, and making aware of this 15 to 20 cent price increase, then that ultimately gives the power back to consumers to decide whether or not they want to support an organization with sustainability goals. Next, I also want to address PepsiCo's industry-leading dominance and presence. As the second leading company in the food and beverage industry, producing 20 billion bottles on average, they have an inherent responsibility to ensure that their bottles are safe for human consumption and also have minimal environmental impact. Now, with that said, I also want to address the UN's Sustainability Development Goals. But specifically, we targeted SDG 12, which is responsible production and consumption. By switching to a bioplastic like PLA, we're reducing our environmental impact, thereby satisfying this SDG. We also targeted SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. By switching to a bioplastic like PLA, we're preventing the human health harm associated with microplastics like oxidative stress, endocrine disruption, and potential fertility issues. Now, as PepsiCo starts to create its future sustainability plan, it's important for them to keep in mind that they can either stick with their current PET model, which contributes to environmental harm and human health harm, or they can invest into a bioplastic like PLA. The company these past 10 years has grossed $715 billion, making the $3 billion investment into PLA over these next 10 years completely feasible. So they either stick with their current PET models or they switch to PLA, which truly prioritizes environmental health, consumer health, and deeply aligns them with their mission statement. Thank you.
A little feedback generally. These are really hard, but you knew that. What you reflected today is the result of a lot of really good research that you did, that you presented more fully in the 25-minute presentation. And today you brought that tighter. Good connection to the judges, to the audience, people you were trying to persuade. Good eye contact. I like the fact that some of you came out in front of the podium, got closer to us. A little scary, you didn't know what you were gonna do, but generally, really well done, congratulations, all around.
I echo that. Let me see, I'm going through my notes here, I made a lot of them. I like the teams that used some visuals, whether that was at the beginning. I think there was the team that gave me a visual about the size of the water issue being equated to like 3 inches covering the entire state. It was also effective midway through the presentation. There's the team that said, you know, these microplastics, the amount that we're talking about is more than the weight of all the buildings on campus. Those are both effective, they help me understand and anchor, and so I found that to be effective whether at the beginning or you know, in the middle, maybe at the beginning of trying to make a particular point. There's one of the teams I thought did a great job. You know, one of the elements that we are asked to judge on is persuasiveness, and that's tough, right? Like, how do you sell something to a for-profit organization that's really, you know, an ethical challenge that you're trying to solve? And one of the most effective ways to do that is to tie it to the business concern. You know, why is the company going to want to do this besides it just being a good thing to do or the right thing to do? I thought it was effective, the team that brought in the example of competitors. You know, this is, you're the leader now, but X and Snapchat are on your heels, you know, they're catching up. And so it's important that we not get complacent. I thought that was very effective to point to the competitors and what is the business reason that we're going to want to do it. Or investing in the land and doing these things is going to bring us long-term returns. I think reasons like that, tying the ethical issue to the business concern is one of the best ways to be persuasive and compelling and get your proposal adopted. But agree with Barney, this is very tough, and congratulations for being done with it. Everybody did a great job, and I love doing this every year and watching you. You're all very impressive. I could not have done this when I was at your age and going through this process. I'm just super impressed by all of you. Great job.
Thank you.